Mac Fitzgerald, a 2026 commitment for Boston College, is special, but could he be more special than you're imagining?
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of 247. I work for Eagle Insider. I'm the publisher and editor over there. On today's show, we got a packed episode with a lot of different topics. Hockey is ready for their big Beanpot showdown with BU after a win over UNH this weekend. I'll give you what's going on there. Is basketball savable? That's my second cop. I want to talk about that. And finally, we're going to get into recruiting as Mac Fitzgerald, one of BC's top-rated commits for the class of 26, was down in New Orleans. And we'll talk about what that is to kick this off. So in New Orleans, they had a program run by Nike. It's called the Elite Next Ones. And what it is each football team that has a team in the country gets to nominate one player to go down and compete in this. So the Patriots, they nominated Boston College commit and from Catholic Memorial, Mac Fitzgerald. Now, Mac Fitzgerald, if you have not been paying attention, he is a 26 edge rusher. He had 10 sacks last year for Catholic Memorial. And his dad, Craig Fitzgerald, is the strength and conditioning coach, one of the most important coaches on Bill O'Brien's staff. So, he is the highest rated recruit BC has, one of the highest in the state of Massachusetts, according to 247. So it made sense that he got nominated. Now, a lot of folks out there are excited about BC's class of 26, and I get it. Like, you look at guys like Mark Antunes or Corinne Berry, or even, some of the offensive linemen that they also have coming from Massachusetts, Dom Funk. There's all these guys out there, and Mac Fitzgerald, he's the one that doesn't get a lot of talk. And, I think a lot of that has to do with, he's the coach's son, one of the coach's sons. So maybe he's just another commitment of a kid they had to take. But I'm here to tell you, this kid is not just a coach's son. He's well beyond that. This is a very good prospect. And we got to see tape of it on some of the Twitter handles. Mike Roach, who I work with for 247, was down there, and he put out two tapes. One was against Emmanuel Imaratio. I'm going to totally butcher his name up. Number 5 ranked total, like overall, number 5 ranked offensive lineman. Mac had a little hard time with him, and I get it because this guy is an absolute monster, and he looks like he's like 25. So he got a little trouble there. But then they showed another clip, and he did really well. So, he didn't get into a ton of like post camp talk, but I love the clips that they have of him. I think he's going to be, I think it's worth talking about that BC really needs to land some strong edge rushers because they've lost Donovan Azaraku. And I honestly think you look at the depth chart and the way that it's progressing, it's not deep at all. And so you saw already BC has 2 edge rushers in this class, and it's Mac Fitzgerald and Mason Leak out of Bacon Academy. But they're not done. They've been contacting and going after other edge rushers. So I'm thinking they're gonna go for 3 or 4, and they need to. Like, you look at who they have moving forward. This year, you have Quintavious Hutchins, who's graduating. You have next year, you have Edwin Kalengi, who's graduating. So it's going to get thin fast. And the guys that you're developing are going to have to hit. You're going to have to get some good ones there. So you got to hope that, a Jaden Fry or a Israel Aladapapu, who are both class 25, these are the types of guys that they're hoping to get in there, along with like a transfer youngster like Favor Bate, who has 3 years in front of him. These are all big, important things. So when you see Mac Fitzgerald going out there and representing the state and representing himself pretty well, that's a good sign. I think he's a very good kid. I can't wait to see, it's going to be funny to have I'm sure he's going to enjoy having his dad kicking his butt into college gear. But this is, you look at the class, and I know a lot of folks were, worried when Bill Belichick was floating around Massachusetts, flashing around his rings and his 25-year-old girlfriend or whatever he's dating. Mac Fitzgerald, in terms of committing and sticking with BC, is about as ironclad as it's going to get. Tom Funk, I would think, is up there too because he's a Funk and their family in the school. But I'm saying here, this I don't think. I mean, Mac Fitzgerald could blow up for CM next year and have like 20 sacks. He's not going anywhere. His dad's on the staff. He's not going anywhere. So that was one thing I wanted to bring up about BC football recruiting. And honestly, I'm going to let BC football breathe for a little bit because there's more recruiting news. But right now, let's get into basketball recruiting. As BC was in contact with a local 4-star class of 2025 recruit who was recently released out of his national signing day contract that he signed with Miami. So Jim, if you've not been paying attention, Jim Laranga, the head coach of Miami, he retired. And when a coach goes out like that, the way that college sports works now, you can get out of your commitment. And so there is a center who plays for Putnam Academy in Connecticut, who was committed to Miami, and then he decided to open up his commitment again. And that his name is Ben Ahmed. And I love the thought of this for a few different reasons. One, he's 6'9" and 300 pounds. No little guy that like thin big man. This is a big boy. And I would love to see a guy like this size. Like, just think of like Chad Venning adding on some pounds. And the other part I love is that he's basically a top 100 recruit. And so, yeah, sign me up. You look at the class of 25, you have Jack Bailey, who is a power forward. He's 6'10", but, maybe he's going to play the 4. And you have Caleb Sturger, a combo guard, and Akbar Wahid, who's a forward. So this would be a really nice get for BC. Now, it's going to be interesting to see, given the state of BC basketball, what this kid thinks of, right? Like, obviously, the basketball team is not in great shape. Obviously, there's lots of questions about Earl Grant. He just left a program because his staff was just about to be replaced. Would he want to go to a school that there's a potential that could happen? I'm not saying it's going to, but could. You look at that compared to the other schools he's looking at: Butler, Providence, Oklahoma State, like much more solidified schools, I would believe. So maybe he's a bit of a shot in the dark here, but hey, the fact that he's mentioning BC is always a positive. Now, in our second segment, let's keep it up with basketball. A interesting game on Saturday. Interesting and very, very, very depressing. We'll talk about that in just a moment. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting features because it keeps me every moment of the game exciting. Watching the big game on Sunday, I had some bets that went on during the game. I did some before. It's easy, and I love that's why I use it, and I never miss my chance on FanDuel. Plus, the app's easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back, Locked On Boston College. AJ Black here. And let's talk basketball. Well, let's talk about it, because Boston College had every chance in the world to beat Syracuse at Syracuse on Saturday, and they still lost. They were up by 7 points in double overtime and still lost. They had a chance to win it in regulation and turned it over and lost. It was a brutal loss for the Eagles. As I've said, I am not here to beat a dead horse. That's why I do not go into every game, because it's frustrating as heck to watch these games. The team never play. The team busts its butt. You got guys out there working their tails off. You got, Donald Hand and Fred Payne making shots. They're doing the best that they can out there. But in the end, it's never enough. And so I look at what's going on, and this is just another season that's not going anywhere. We don't know what's going to happen with the coaching staff. I'm going to say that again. I am not going to go into a whole episode about firing Earl Grant. If you want, I've done it before. I'm not. That's not the purpose of this segment. My purpose of talking about this is BC basketball as a program savable. Can they become more than just the punching bag of the ACC? I look back to last year, a team that had, NBA starter or NBA rotational player Quentin Post, all SEC player Devin McLaughlin, all defensive player of the year candidate Jaden Zachary. You got Claudel Harris shooting lights out for Mississippi State. You got Mason Madsen doing well. I mean, you get the point, right? Second round of the NIT, never that. I mean, with that much talent, you should have been able to get higher than the NIT, and you didn't. Now, you lost everybody in the portal. Everybody. Anyone who was anyone other than Donald Hand, Chaz Kelly seemed to head to the door. And I don't know what the purpose. I don't know why. I'm not going to speculate. I will say that, you can get on Earl Grant for that. You can get on him for the way that the portal worked out. And we don't know how much these kids were offered more than BC could handle. But we heard last night during the game, if you were listening, there was a quote in there about Devin McLaughlin that Earl Grant, it sounded like Earl Grant acknowledging that he undercut what they should have been able to offer. So that is a big black mark. But what I'm looking at here is even when you had a roster that should have been an NCAA tournament roster, you didn't do it. Now you're back to square one and you're rebuilding again. And your team is looking like they're never going to make even the ACC tournament. Will BC basketball ever get back? It seems like we're in a vicious cycle right now where you get a coach who brings in some people, and you can say this for Steve Donahue, Jim McChristian, or Earl Grant. Bring some people in. There's a modicum of excitement. Some of those guys play well, whether it's Jerome Robinson, Kai Bowman, Quentin Post, Donald Hand. You've got some guys that can play, but it never works out. Every time there's some sort of, slip up that keeps the team from actually going to that next step. And because of that, the students and the fans don't go to the games, which then gets the players upset. And I saw one player's parents or somebody related to them going off on the fans last night. We're in that cycle of part of the cycle. The fans stop showing up. The players then hit the portal, and you're back at square one again. How do you stop this cycle? Because it just goes on. This has been going on for 16 years. You bring in a coach. All three have not been A+ material. They try their best, and many of them bring in guys. I mean, as I mentioned, Kai Bowman, Jerome Robinson, good gets for Jim Christian. Earl Grant's done a nice job of bringing some guys in, but they never get past that hump. And because of that, the fan interest just continues to suffer. You can't recruit. You can't bring in transfers because your team's a punching bag. How do you stop this cycle? And I don't have an answer for this. I do, but there's a couple things that we need to look at. First of all, is NIL enough? Is BC really that far behind? I keep hearing numbers about how the school is doing much better in terms of bringing in that money, but how much further behind are they falling than other ACC, Big East schools? That's something worth talking about. Secondly, will BC ever fork up the money to bring in a premier coach for basketball? I've said over and over again, I'm not going to, push for Earl Grant to get fired. Last night, Saturday's game was as close as I have said to just fire Earl Grant on Twitter, because they should not have lost that game. They were all over that, but that's what, mediocre coaches do. or worse. And that's why I say, like, if BC really wants, if Father Leahy or the president after this season is over decides that they want to end this cycle, you have to spend money. You know, you can go out there and say, oh, I want to get a great coach. But if BC's going to be cheap about it, you're going to get another Errol Grant. You're going to get another Jim Christian. You're going to get another Steve Donahue. You have to spend the money. I don't understand with Boston College, the school itself, why this is some sort of revolutionary idea. The school seems so for football for a while too. Like, you put money in, you're going to make money. And if you don't want to put the money in to make yourself a bigger school, then get out of the ACC. So they did with Bill O'Brien. Credit to them. They did with baseball with Todd Interneto. That's a great hire. They're doing it with hockey with Greg Brown. Acacia Walker-Weinstein for women's lacrosse. A+. Swimming. They hired, what was her name? Dana Torres for swimming. Great. You're going to have to do that with basketball at some point. And if you want to, if Earl Grant's contract is so big you can't get out of it, or you want to chalk this year up to it's a rehab year because you lost your whole team to the transfer portal, go ahead. Go do that. I have not seen this team be consistent enough to say that he's the answer yet. And if you want to go out there and tell me that I'm wrong, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm just saying he's not going to end the cycle. So next year, we're as I said on an earlier episode, Clemson and FSU might get that year, the 2031, that might end the ACC as we know it. And BC has to do their best job to make themselves an attractive brand. Because when things fall apart, they're going to be looking at the pieces of what's available to go to the Big Ten, to go to the SEC, if that's what happens. If BC basketball is in the state it is in right now, that is going to make BC look like garbage. And it does right now. Like, you don't look like a serious program because you have no fan support. The team's always near the bottom. It makes it really hard to build this up. So, as I said before, you may have to spend more. If Earl Grant's not the answer, to buy him out. And if you do that, you're going to have to then spend more money to get your next coach too, because you're not going to go. You cannot go cheap. You have to get somebody here that's an ACC level coach, and that's why I think if I was Blake James, I would make that move, because your time is running out, and you're going to have the same issues next year. I'm telling you, like, if you bring in your recruiting class like last year, since you're going to be dealing with, does Donald Hand come back? Because do you really think a guy like Donald Hand is looking at this program going, oh, you know what? I'm going to tack my last 2 years on dealing with this. I don't know what Donald Hand is thinking, but I'm just saying, like, if I was him, I would be looking at it. And I'm sure you got to know, like, too, like, he's getting text message from other players from across the country, agents. It's the way this whole transfer portal thing works. You lose him, and then you're like, oh, well, we got to do it all over again. This isn't Earl Grant's fault. He lost Donald Hand. Like, when does this stop? When does this stop? And the answer is when you put the money into the program. And to put your money in your program, you're going to have to get a higher level coach. That's my thoughts here. And in our final segment, I'm going to talk about the Beanpot, which is coming up tonight. BC Hockey had a big weekend. I'll explain who they beat and why I like BC to beat BU and win their first Beanpot in years. We'll get into that in just a moment. This is Locked On Boston College. Host AJ Black here. Thank you all again who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every single day. If you start up that podcast app that you use, whether it's Spotify or Apple, and you hit Locked On Boston College, you are the MVP. So thank you all who've done that. And when you're done with this episode, check out Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Now, let's wrap things up with a little bit of hockey talk. I have to apologize, guys. I was out sick on Friday. I did not have a voice. I was going to do an episode with BC Hockey Blogger. I promise I'll get you guys back in with him. And just timing did not work today to get him on to talk about this. But over the weekend, BC goes to UNH and they win 4-2. They come from behind. Another great game for the Eagles. They're ninth in a row. This was, just another great win for Boston College. You got some big plays from Gabe Perreault with a goal, Will Vogt, Gentry Schamberger, and Mike Posma, all while playing without Oscar Jelvik and Aiden Heschrook. I'm totally screwing that last name up. A good win. It was not easy. I honestly thought UNH was going to win this game. They're up 2-1 at one point. But BC, the way that they've been playing, their third period play, man, it's been really, really good. They've been outscoring opponents 34-9 in the final 20 minutes of those games. So they've been red hot when they need to get red hot. And this is a team that's a wagon right now. As I said, 9 straight wins for Greg Brown and his program. And now the big one. This is on Monday. It is Beanpot time. It is the finals against BU. This is, after all the success of Northeastern over the last couple of years, them getting in there, it all goes down to BC and BU. This is what people want to see. And you've got 2 top 10 teams. BC has beaten BU already twice this year. They beat them in a home and home. Both teams are playing well. I mean, both teams in their first Beanpot games smoked, their opponent, with BU beating the snot out of Harvard and BC winning 8-2 against Northeastern. It looks like this is going to be a heck of a game. And I think I cannot wait. The part that I love about these games is the emotion. BC and BU fans, they hate each other. I mean, I'm a BC guy. If you ask me off the air what my thoughts are on BU fans, sometimes I'll give you my, especially if we go meet at a bar, I tell you my thoughts, because it's a hated rivalry. This is as big as it gets, right? And when both teams are playing well, that's when it gets even better. So the place is going to be packed. I've heard secondary tickets for this game are, through the roof, which is great. But you got to hope BC wins this, right? This is going to be their first chance to win a Beanpot since before COVID in 2019. It's been that long. So it's been, 5-6 years now? I mean, it's been a while. It's time for BC to get that Beanpot back in Conti form where it belongs. And it's going to be a great game. 2 teams that, obviously, as I said, are playing exceptionally well. Give me Ryan Leonard, though, right now. This is the moment where he becomes a national name, I think. We watched in the last 2 weeks, he had 2 hat tricks in the last couple of weeks. He's in there for the Hobie Baker. This is the type of game where he could really establish himself as a leader for that. If he goes out there, scores 2 goals against BU, or has a big moment score to win it for BC, you're going to hit guys like Butcher Gross, who's going to pay attention to that and really push it to the limit. So I'm looking for a big game from Ryan Leonard, and I'm never sleeping on Jacob Fowler either. Like, this is a guy that can just win you games standing on his head. Like, when you have a goalie that plays like this is when you win. So I will give you all the updates on Twitter. We'll have, BC Hockey Blogger on at another time, but he'll have his recap on Eagle Insider. I'm just excited. And I also need to make sure that I shout out women's lacrosse, who had 2 games this weekend. They opened the season with a thrashing of Loyola Chicago, 21-7. And then they had another game on Sunday, thrashing Boston University. So the defending national champions, they haven't skipped a beat. They're back out there, thrashing and beating the snot out of everyone they're playing against. They're going to be a fun team to watch. And we have coverage now on Eagle Insider on BC women's lacrosse with Giovanni Collada. I'm probably messing up your name. Covering it now, and he knows the team well. He's been doing the play-by-plays on WZBZ, so we're really excited to have him on board to talk about the women's lacrosse team. Check him out on Eagle Insider as well. Well, thank you all for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow with more updates. BC recruiting is in a dead period, but news is never dead. We'll always have more here at Locked On BC, and so thank you for making us your first listen every single day, and we'll see you again for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.